this episode of Travelogue, we step back in time to a Shanghai that existed long before its skyscrapers. From puppets to crickets, this is your ticket to the town of 7 treasures, to an era thought long gone in Shanghai. Hello and welcome to Travelogue, where you and I get to traipse around China together. Yay! My name is Min-Zhui Lee, you can call me Zhui, and today I'm going to show you a side to Shanghai that's a little bit different to the one that you often see on picture postcards. This is the ancient town of Qibao, a living, breathing, 1,000-year-old fossil that's full of folk tales and also folk activities. So let's step back in time together and check out Qibao, which is also known as the town of 7 treasures. Qibao lies at the heart of Shanghai's Minhang district, less than 10 kilometers from Hongqiao International Airport. Downtown Shanghai is just a subway ride to the south. If you're wondering where the name comes from, well, Qi means 7 and Bao means treasure. And predictably, this town has 7 treasures, seen here, immortalized in stone. Each comes with a story, which we'll get to individually in time. The first couple of treasures I'll tell you about are a golden sutra and the flying Buddha. So let's head to the main religious site in town, Qibao Temple. The compound was renovated in the early 2000s, but its repute dates back to the 5 dynasties and 10 kingdoms period, an era of political turmoil in China in the first half of the 10th century. The temple is said to have existed since the first foundations of the town were laid. Today it stands somewhat stoically, I think, in Qibao's east, drawing people in with its grand sculptures and quiet spaces. There's an endless stream of worshippers stopping by to pray. Private prayer services are held here too. Buddhism is China's oldest imported religion, thought to have arrived from India 2,000 years ago. These days, Buddhism in China incorporates elements of folk religion, and notably Taoism, a homegrown religious and philosophical tradition. These deeply rooted beliefs find popular expression in, among other things, martial arts like Tai Chi. But since we're Travelogue, we won't bombard you with facts about the history of religion. Instead, we'll climb a pagoda. So this pagoda has 7 stories altogether, like the 7 treasures of Qibao, and 2 of these treasures have something to do with religion. One of these treasures is a golden sutra. An emperor's concubine spent 5 years writing it using gold powder. The sutra is 100% real. It's a protected relic at the Shanghai Museum. The second treasure that I'm talking about is a flying Buddha. It was midnight and a villager was heading home after a few drinks, but suddenly he saw a huge fireball fall from the sky and crash into the temple with a deafening noise. It turned out to be a gigantic Buddha, so the man covered it in reeds, but when he came back the next morning with some villagers, the reeds had miraculously turned into a straw shed. Ooh, last level! Unlike the Golden Sutra, no one knows exactly what became of the flying Buddha, but its legend lives on. Okay, that's 2 of the 7 stories down. Next, we'll venture back to the main part of Qibao Ancient Town, to a tower where the 3rd treasure resides. Well, this is the Qibao Bell Tower, so I'm expecting to find the legendary Qibao Bell here. So, as the story goes, the bell was said to have been found floating on a river after a thunderstorm that lasted 7 days and 7 nights. You know, the whole shebang: thunder, lightning, flooding, gale force winds. So, this is it. Here we go. Check it out. Qibao is the only ancient town in Greater Shanghai, and its location is actually quite convenient. Having been around for 1,000 years, it offers a glimpse into traditional olden-day Chinese architecture and urban planning. Measuring about 2 square kilometers in area, it's easily covered on foot. And as it stands on 2 canals, it's considered a water town.
Hey, so while I'm sitting here, let me tell you 2 stories of the 7 treasures of Qibao. So one of them is to do with a general who was mortally wounded by an arrow, but he used the leaf extract of a catalpa tree, applied it to his wound, and miraculously, the wound healed. So the 1,000-year-old catalpa tree is one of the treasures. Now another treasure is an axe. And what happened in that story was that centuries ago, villagers were building this bridge over here, but for some reason it kept collapsing. One day there was a huge torrential downpour, the rivers were flooding, and no one knew what to do except for an old man. And what he did, he went to the butcher's shop, got an axe, and rammed it into the base of this bridge. And for some reason it stayed upright and intact till today, I guess. And perhaps the axe is still in there somewhere.
Qibao isn't just about these legendary 7 treasures though. There are so many other treasures as well, even if some are intangible. The shadow play is a treasure not just of Qibao, but of all China. It's an ancient form of theatre played out by colourful silhouette figures, accompanied by music and singing. The puppeteers tend to be older people, many of whom have a personal repertoire of dozens of plays, passed down to them by word of mouth. It's said that the unique Shanghai style of puppet play is preserved in its purest form in Qibao Ancient Town.
担心什么东西呢？
皮影已经有2000多年历史了，到上海也已经有100多年历史了。南方皮影用小羊皮做的，北方皮影呢用牛皮、驴皮做的。那么现在呢，过去没有塑料，现在有的塑料呢用塑料片代替皮看塑料，但是从传承角度上讲呢，这个皮影是不正宗了。假如没有人传承下去嘛，这个皮影只能够挂在墙上，对吧？放在墙壁。
没有教你的孩子？
现在呢，我在临湘小学，
江
南小学还有青少年国中教同学，他们很高兴的，他们。我们坐下来呢，这里有。
Even if these days the puppets are plastic, they're still so beautiful. A close inspection reveals so much charm and character in the colourful caricatures. I really hope this unique art form will be kept alive by the younger generations. Described as the precursor to modern cinema, shadow plays once entertained vast crowds while disseminating knowledge and promoting cultural values. The best puppeteers can control multiple puppets at a time. They are often masters of other talents too, such as improvisational singing, and many are adept at playing musical instruments. Also, it's not uncommon for a puppeteer to be the one who painstakingly brings his own puppets to life. So authentic Shanghai shadow play can only be found here in Qibao, and the puppets that are used are different to the northern counterparts, which are usually carved and have 2 arms. Is that right, Mr. Monkey King? Yes, that's right. See, I am painted and I only have 1 arm. Well, that means that they can be controlled using just 2 sticks and 1 hand, kind of like chopsticks, which reminds me of a tale of the 7 treasures of Qibao, a pair of jade chopsticks. So they were given by the emperor to a local hero. He was a skilled warrior, and he used his chopsticks like weapons to fight monsters and defeat evil and save his fellow villagers. That does sound like a story fit for the shadow play stage, doesn't it? I concur! Coming up next, I get to experience more of Qibao's olden day charm, and I rub shoulders with some of its charming older residents. I also get a taste of the local flavours. If you've ever seen tourist spots in Shanghai, whether in person or in photos or videos, you'll know that it's pretty much impossible to avoid the crowds. But here, in Qibao Ancient Town, there are plentiful pockets of peace. You can have entire museums like this cotton textile mill almost all to yourself.
So I've read all the stories of the 7 treasures of Qibao, and one of them involves a golden rooster. Now, the story goes like this. There was a golden rooster who would crow very early in the morning, right before sunrise, waking up a super lazy man and forcing him to go to work. But because of this, he became very wealthy. Now, the villagers decided to follow his example, and they in turn also became quite wealthy. And this work ethic was passed down through the generations. Now, I wonder whether the guy who owned this old house was a descendant of the lazy man, because it's quite big, so I'm guessing he was very rich. And it's very possible that he may have made his fortunes through the textile industry, because back in the day, Qibao was very famous for its prosperous textile industry.
And while we're on the subject of the textile industry, here's another random story.
So in the olden days, Qibao women enjoyed a status in society higher than women in other parts of China, and that's because of their major contribution to the family income as the principal workforce in the textile industry. Now, as proof of that, there's a special wedding custom here in Qibao. Well, when the bride arrived in her sedan chair, the new mother-in-law wouldn't just sit there waiting for her to come in and pay her respects. She'd actually rush outside and offer her arm and support her and escort her into the wedding hall. You go, girls.
Alright, so if my maths is correct, I've told you all 7 stories of the 7 treasures of Qibao now, plus a few bonus ones. So let's keep going, and I'll show you more unofficial treasures. Right now, we're hitting up a tea house with a tiny theatre at the back, where it seems all the oldies of Qibao go for the daily dose of old-school entertainment. This is the national treasure known as Suzhou Pingtan. It's a form of traditional rhythmic storytelling that's been around for eons. The city of Suzhou is 100 kilometers northwest of Shanghai, and although this art originated there around 400 years ago, it really flourished in Shanghai, coinciding with the city's commercial and cultural development from the mid-1800s to the early 20th century. Today, Pingtan is still popular with the more mature locals, who I'm sure are also attracted by the unlimited hot water for their tea. Plus, this space opens at 4:30 in the morning, and entry is just a couple of kuai. An affordable membership fee for a club offering all-day relaxation. For me, it's a heartwarming peek into local life here in Qibao. The tea house/theatre is right on the main snack street, which is an unrelenting river of people. But once you step inside here, you get to enjoy the gentle throb of wrinkled conversation, the wafting scent of tea, and of course, the sound of Pingtan. Back on the street, I realize how perfect Qibao is for a day trip from downtown Shanghai. Really, just a few hours are all you need, and it's so accessible by subway, unlike the other, perhaps more famous, water towns. It's a compact place, not only in the physical sense, but also in terms of history and culture. Its proximity to the airport makes it a viable option to throw into your itinerary if you have a long stopover in Shanghai, although do make sure you're transiting at Hongqiao and not Pudong, the other international airport on the far side of the city. Anyway, I reckon it's finally time to find out what puts this ancient town high up on foodies' must-visit lists. Qibao's Old Street is divided into two sections. The north is lined with the usual souvenir stuff, you know, antiques, calligraphy, silk. The south is more my kind of street.
Check out how chock-a-block this street is. Well, if there's one reason why crowds descend upon Qibao, it's probably for its magnificent menu of street snacks. Now, if you come, make sure you come with an empty stomach and unclogged nostrils, and I can promise you, your taste buds will not be disappointed. And the best thing is that this street is cheaper than other similar streets in Shanghai. Plus, it's authentic. Yay!
And yes, don't forget your phone for some instant social media snap and post gratification. Dim sum, fried potato balls, braised pig's trotters, salt oven baked quail eggs, skewered meats, the list goes on. But I'm looking for something sticky because I love glutinous rice, and these gigantic spheres are both sweet and savoury.
All stuck to my teeth now. So this is Tang Yuan with black sesame paste inside.
Just to make it clear, that was not an accident, but I thought they'd edit the shot out. Anyway, after a good rinse of the mouth, I'm ready for more. I just don't know what to pick. Sticky rice cake in an assortment of flavours is a local hit, but snacks from all over China have made their way here to this one old Shanghai street, and the names read like a carefully curated menu. The luscious aromas make me almost want to cry. Even the sounds do too.
Qibao is known for its rice cakes, and apparently this is one of the most iconic ones. Bit of sesame seeds and red bean inside.
Gooey, caramelized, sticky rice cake. Well, I'm not the only one engaging in glorious gluttony. When night falls, Qibao Ancient Town reveals another side of her personality. She lights up, and even though you see less of that enchanting old architecture, she's entrancing in other ways. Perhaps it's because everyone's belly is full, but the atmosphere is marvelously relaxed. Who needs overpriced cocktails overlooking the modern Shanghai skyline? An evening stroll in Qibao to aid with digestion is just right. And if you have a plane to catch back at Hongqiao Airport, friends waiting for you in downtown Shanghai for that overpriced cocktail, or a hotel nearby because you're here for an event at the National Exhibition and Convention Center, it's all conveniently close. Indeed, Qibao, the town of 7 treasures, is the ideal Shanghai getaway for a few packed hours of history and culture. And food. Coming up next, what do the Disney cartoons Pinocchio and Mulan have to do with Qibao? Crickets, Jiminy, Crikey, and fierce fighting crickets, prized for their battle skills in the cricket grounds. Qibao Ancient Town, with all its old oriental flavours. It claims 7 legendary treasures, but in my opinion, there are so many more unofficial ones, and I dare say, this gentleman certainly counts as another.
Do the names Snowy or Thompson & Thompson ring a bell for you? They do for me, but how are they related to Qibao? Well, Qibao was the hometown of the late artist Zhang Chongren. He was a very, very good friend of the Belgian cartoonist Hergé, and Hergé is best known for creating the adventures of Ding Ding or Tintin, or Tantam for you Frenchies out there, but don't laugh at my pronunciation. Anyway, so Mr. Zhang was the inspiration behind the fictional character Chang Chongchen, who first appeared in The Blue Lotus. And Mr. Zhang also provided a lot of the information and writings that featured in the cartoon. So we have a lot to thank him for, especially because The Blue Lotus is a pretty legendary tale.
Now, I'll tell you another tale if you listen and look closely. What are these people in this cartoon doing? Hint, it's another Qibao treasure, but this time it involves a noisy little creature. This is a cafe with a theme, crickets, and out back is where they live and fight. Cricket fighting has been a popular pastime in China for more than 1,000 years, starting in the Tang Dynasty. It's considered a blood sport, although unlike, say, bullfighting, it's rare for the creature to suffer any injury. Once a hobby of emperors, then widespread among commoners before going into decline. Today, cricket fighting is undergoing a renaissance. I never thought I'd be so fascinated by brawling insects, and I had no idea it's a multi-million-dollar industry. Playing dead. 还要动。目前我还没看见呢。 Cricket fighting is taken very seriously. There are pedigree crickets that are carefully bred and raised by knowledgeable keepers.
蛐蛐罐子到现在呢，它有2个用途，一个是养蛐蛐的，一个就是收藏，它就文化收藏。收藏的话，这个罐子，像这种罐子，你就要卖几千块钱一个，3、4千块钱一个，这个还算一般的，你卖几万、几十万都也有。
Yep, even real estate in cricket country is becoming unaffordable. If I had the funds, though, I'd go for something minimalistic, I reckon. Experts like Mr. Bao and Mr. Mao have opened up a whole new cricket world to me. As for the tale, well, back in the 18th century, cricket fighting fan Emperor Qianlong was touring this region and passed through Qibao with his entourage. But the carriage full of his best crickets tipped over, and his fine insects escaped. That explains why Qibao is known for its superior crickets, fit for national tournaments.
Hey, Crickster! I love that sound. Crickets make that chirping noise by stridulation, so rubbing 2 specially textured limbs together. Just wanted to tell you that to sound smart. Anyway, this is a very adorable cricket house. It comes with a nice little bowl of water and a nice little meal of millet. And also, when the time is right, they get their very own bridal chamber. So, little Crickster here can mate with his cricket lover in private. Oh, a very, very comfy life you're living, aren't you? Hey?
Qibao Ancient Town, full of stories and surprises. The entire place is pedestrianised, so exploration is done on your 2 feet, as is teleporting yourself back in time to a bygone Shanghai. This is the Old Trades House, a small 2-story museum reproducing local street scenes from the past. While the town itself is free to wander around 24/7, indoor attractions like this, as well as the Cricket Cafe, the Cotton Textile Mill, the Shadow Play Museum, the Bell Tower, they charge a small fee. Well worth it for a bit of time travelling in Shanghai.
Well, I don't know about you, but when I picture Shanghai, it's a scene of that fantastic futuristic Pudong skyline. You know, it's really hard for me to believe that Shanghai not too long ago looked more like this, with its cobbled streets and family-owned businesses, you know, specializing in trades and handicrafts. It really is a far cry from the Shanghai we know today. But that said, Qibao is just a subway ride away, so you can easily step back in time to perhaps simpler days, you know, where it was more about the basic necessities rather than the luxuries. Perhaps that's the answer to inner peace, you know? More minimalism and less materialism.
But who am I to offer such counsel? I, for one, do love the glitz and glamour of modern Shanghai. However, I'd need a respite from it, and this town of 7 treasures is the perfect refuge. There's nothing glitzy or glamorous about it. It's almost rustic in its age-old allure. It's a hodgepodge of history and culture amidst ancient architectural relics. And look what I found here, a slice of serenity. The items on display are exquisite. In one room, an intricate sand mandala takes center stage, a Tibetan Buddhist geometric representation of the universe crafted with brightly dyed sand, generally in the form of an imaginary palace. The sacred and meditative process can take weeks for a group of monks to complete. Mounted on the walls are dozens of tankas, elaborate Tibetan Buddhist paintings created using mineral pigments on cotton or silk. They typically depict a central Buddhist deity surrounded by smaller figures in a mesmerizing symmetrical composition. It certainly set the mood for some me time.
This is nice, isn't it? It's very possible in Qibao that you can stumble across quiet sanctuaries like this charming tea house where you can take a break and have a sip of a drink and maybe even ponder the meaning of life. And also rejuvenate before hitting the ancient streets of Qibao again. It's pretty nice, isn't it?
Indeed, while Qibao is padded with food vendors and stores awash with tawdry touristy knickknacks, it hasn't sacrificed its true essence to over-commercialism, as is the case with many old cities, now seething with sightseers. Qibao, home to a whole compendium of treasures, is itself a living, breathing treasure of China.
Well, how was that for a different side to Shanghai? At least I thought it was rather unexpected. Unexpected, underrated, even unforgettable. So let me leave you here with a saying about Shanghai. To know the sophisticated 10-year-old surface of Shanghai, there are the skyscrapers of Pudong. To know the 100-year-old spirit of Shanghai, there are the colonial buildings of the Bund. But to know the 1,000-year-old soul of Shanghai, there is Qibao. My name's Min-Zhui Lee, and I'll catch you next time on Travelogue.
In the next episode of Travelogue, we're visiting Harbin, the famous ice city, during summer. We'll discover how this former fishing village was transformed into a metropolis of over 10 million residents, with a helping hand from the Russians.